welcome to another beautiful day right here, of course, especially on this talking about TV, NSTV, Lagos. And when I say yes, happy new month to everyone right there. Of course, yes, it's the 2nd of October, and of course, it's still a bright, fresh month in this particular month. Of course, yesterday was all about Nigeria at 64. Amazing speech from the president, of course. We had, of course, a memorable when it comes to yes, Nigeria at 64. And of course, it's time for journalists explain this on NSTV Lagos, whereby we'll be talking about topical issues concerning Nigeria. And of course, my name is Stephen Ajay. I won't be doing it alone right there. This program, of course, I will be with my analyst. Of course, we'll be discussing about some of the topical issue this particular afternoon. And yes, Nicholas Buchuku is right here in the studio. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Stephen. It's nice seeing you. You look good.
Yeah, thank you. And you're not looking so bad. So.
Thank you very much.
All right, welcome. Of course, don't forget you can follow us on our social media, NSTV Lagos on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course all other social media. Of course, you can also watch us on Go TV. And of course, moving to our discourse, Nicholas. Yesterday was, of course, the 1st of October, and not just only that, definitely. Not just only a bright month, not only the 1st of October, but it's a very special month when it comes to commemoration, when it comes to bring back the old days, of course, Nigeria as a whole. Of course, Nigeria at 64, definitely, it is something we need to talk about. Don't forget the past heroes. We could mention a lot from the first president of Nigeria, of course, all the way down to the present. And a couple of some of the speech of talking about the President Tinubu. Of course, he said a lot when it comes to Nigeria at 64. Some of the message he passed across to when it comes to this particular speech, and this is what we would be talking about this afternoon. He talked about economic hardship and, of course, political rate overshadow celebration. Because if you want to talk about the economic standard, if you want to talk about how things have gone so far, all the way from the first day talking about 1960 all the way to 64 so far. And also let's be talking about some of the youth, the education sector, some other things that we need to talk about. But before we move directly to some of the economic hardship so far, 64 years in Nigeria, what do you want to say about Nigeria?
Thank you very much. I think it was Chinua
Achebe, yeah.
The great father of African literature. Many years ago, in his lifetime, he gave a simple example that a man who does not know where the rain started falling might not be trusted in knowing when it stopped.
Yeah, definitely.
So we need to come from history so that Nigerians. Unfortunately, I think the establishment or the history is no longer in our curriculum at the secondary school level, unlike in our time.
Yeah.
Nigeria had its independence in October 1, 1960.
Yeah.
We were colonized by the British. I like to use the word colonial invaders, because when you use colonize, it makes it look as if we had no culture, no history, no religion, no divinity, no people with a form of metaphysics, a form of economics, a form of history, a form of communalism. But European historians can be very funny. They relocated many of our Africanism back to Greece and Europe.
Yeah.
It should be noted that slavery, colonialism, was important for Western civilization. Marx and Hegel were clear about this in their books. So we thank God for people like Nnamdi Azikiwe from present-day Anambra State, Tafawa Balewa, Sokoto, and Obafemi Awolowo from Ikenne, Ogun State here, who were involved in negotiating our independence, which was later called a platter of gold. And I think that was a very serious issue for us because unlike the Indians, Gandhi and the people, whether you were in Punjab or whether you were in Delhi, whether you were in Amistra, or the Italians under Garibaldi, whether you were in Calabria, whether you were in Milan, whether you were in Sicily, or the South Africans, whether you were in Soweto or in Pretoria. In 1959, the Kanuri man in Meduguri where I was born, or the Gere man in Bauchi, or the Ijaw man in Down Rivers, or the Ogumosho man in Western Nigeria, or the Gala and the Ibira Basange man in Central Kogi, or the TV Igede Iduma man in Benue, were not all fraternal brothers. So that was a unique difference in the Nigerian independence. So, but we wanted to be free from what Lord Lugard and his girlfriend or side chick, Flora Shaw, but who was officially a journalist, from some accounts anyway, or a ballet dancer. Without referendum in 1913, joined two different over 400 tribes of people in sub-Saharan Africa in a land area of over 920,000 square kilometers. That was the first injustice done to the Nigerians and the unborn ones. So we just lowered the Union Jack and replaced it with the green, white, green, which Taiwo Akikumi, who was buried, recently, 2 months ago in Ibadan, who was not given his national burial, unfortunately. In fact, that day the state governor was away on medical vacation. And for a young man who was barely 28 in 1958 and 9, when the entries were called for the national flag, it's also caused to question the sense of history and nationalism of this APC government at the center. So we became independent, and shortly after, the mistake of 1914, and the fact that we did not fight for our independence to some certain extent, reappeared through a series of coups and counter coups until there was a short fall. There was a little break in 1979 when Obasanjo had to conduct the election, where Shagari, Hazan Kastina, Awolowo, Nnamdi Azikiwe were contestants under different political parties, and Shagari won under the MPN in those days. And barely 4 years with an Ekweme as a vice president, Buhari eventually took over again. From Buhari was upturned to Babangida. Babangida had an election which was the freest and fairest, without laptops and satellites, by Professor Humphrey Wosu. I remember I and my parents leaving our house that day to the polling booths, and Abacha took over from an interim government led by Ernest Shonekon, just from Abeokuta here. Then in 1998, if you remember, the Pope John Paul II came to visit Abacha, to try and appeal to him to release political prisoners and have a credible election. Abacha had 5 parties who were all supporting him back then, including all the actresses, actors, musicians, and some who is who. The 5 parties all single-handedly chose Abacha as the presidential candidate. And before you know it, maybe through divine intervention or through an apple by a Jewish spy, only God and Hamza Mustafa can be very exact about that truth. And we had an election that had an Olufalaye and an Olu Obasanjo as the major contestants, because an MK Abiola, who won an election fairly, did not get to the seat. And that election that brought in Obasanjo was contested by a cross-section of Nigerians of all tribes, students, journalists, lawyers, well-meaning individuals who came out in their number to support Obasanjo. And after that election, the PDP and the AD, back then, before they metamorphosed into the APC, were the 2 principal parties in that election. From there, Yadwa, and we know the issue of Yadwa when Obasanjo I was saying Umaru, and the telephone call interview when Tuwari Yadwa was handling the executive council. And from there, an unplanned Good luck, my senior colleague anyway in Uniport, who had no plan to be president, was sworn in by dint of fate or good luck, and with a wife interestingly named Patience. And we saw the 5 years of his own period,
Definitely.
and a Buhari defeating an Atiku did his 2 terms under an APC, and now we are having Tinubu's APC. So it's been a long journey from 1960 pre-independence or post-amalgamation 1914, post-1960 to the president's speech yesterday, which in my own view was lacking in the real issues. He didn't go and he didn't talk about how he would handle the Obazi report, which was to fix this cabal in the NNPC. He didn't talk about our professors and ASU, who have been crying since Buhari's 8 years.
Yeah.
And let us not forget that this president took over an APC government, because sometimes some of the Southwestern paparazzi and intelligentsia and privilegencia tried to make it look as if the president took over an NNPP or an APGA or a Labour Party. This president, let it be on record, was the national leader of the past 8 years of Buhari's presidency. He didn't talk about our unsafe borders. He didn't stress how the health sector will be made lucrative so that our doctors, our nurses, our radiologists, our physiotherapists, our medical lab scientists won't be in our health centers, and they are thinking of passing exams to UK, Canada, and Australia. He didn't even mention the sports sector. Yes, he talked about the youth and the confab.
Yeah, the
But the youths, are they going to Maiduguri where it is flooded? Or they are coming to Shagamu in Ogun State where courtists and ritualists have made their home? Or they are going to Polakot and Baesa where the militants and Wiki and Fubara are all trying to secure the states and the oil wells with different centripetal and centrifugal forces?
And of course, one of the things he actually said, and I wanted to talk about, saying that they're actually winning war against terrorism. Do you see that happening in Nigeria? Talking about the east side, the Boko Haram terrorists. Are you seeing something, something different from what we have been seeing before when it comes to what is said that we are winning war against terrorists?
When we executed Kensa Azikadagaboro, I think in 1962 or 3, if I'm correct, or just shortly before the Civil War, we thought we had solved the problem of the Niger Delta. Then under Abacha, when we executed Kensa Wiwa in 1996, we thought we had solved the problem of the Niger Delta. And when you see Netanyahu making so much noise about how they will fight Iran, Lebanon, Palestine, and eliminating their commanders, you think you have solved the problem between Israel and Palestine. Until according to Haile Gebre Selassie, at the League of Nations in 1925, the precursor to the United Nations, he was very clear. He came from Ethiopia, a land of the Queen of Sheba, a land where Christianity landed first before it even went to Rome, a land not far from Egypt where even Christ, Joseph, and Mary landed. He went there with great wisdom of African wisdom, and he told the League of Nations, consisting primarily of the European superpowers then, that until the philosophy that holds one race as superior and the other inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, everywhere is war. Buratai, whose father was a World War I veteran and who eventually became the chief of army staff of Nigeria, told us, and I mean the Nigerians with relative memory, not the ones battling with poverty, hunger, and illiteracy and ignorance, that the Boko Haram crisis will take 20 years. For a man who was an infantry officer, he was not in admin or audit or signal. And I think last month or the month before last month, General Lagbaja told us that 2 million security men cannot police 200 million Nigerians. So until the government, with the so-called think tank, Wale Edo, Cardoso, Delalake and co, until they go back into the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan was what Franklin Roosevelt in 1928 during the Great Depression gave the Americans. He did not blame the previous government. He did not blame the opposition. He knew that he had taken power and some Americans had trusted him among many Americans to pilot the American states. Until Tinubu Ashiwaju Jagaban Bogo, the city boy, the first class Chicago University accountants, realizes that being a president necessarily does not mean that you are the finest man in the republic, but that you are the man who by Nigerian standards has won the elections and has been declared so by the Supreme Court. Until he diversifies the economy, he fixes the problems of the border, the problem of inflation, the problem of food prices, the problem of the different crises in the different regions. We will just be rigmaroling, be romanticizing, be fantasizing, and be rhetoricizing over these issues. And he will only play to the hands of the opposition who are trying to gather momentum. I mean, he didn't mention sports. Go to the speech, go to the transcript.
And of course,
And don't sports for those who didn't go to school, who will be in the civil service, in the army. It's an avenue for Nigerians. Whether you are Osimhen who was hawking Piotr in Ojota, or a Chioma Ajunwa who was just a little young teenager in Imo State who joined the police, who gave us gold. It's an avenue for Nigerians to be meaningful and escape being bandits, being prostitutes, being prisoners, and being angry protesters.
All right, we'll talk about the protests definitely. But before we talk more, of course, still a journalist this on NSTV. Let's quickly go for this short commercial. Of course, we'll be back. Okay, welcome back. Of course, the glad you're still sticked on to NSTV Lagos. Of course, it's still journalist these, and of course, Nicholas is still in the studio talking about Nigeria at 64. Of course, talking about it was the examiner celebration right there in different centers when it comes to Nigeria at 64. Nicholas, we've said a lot about Stellari's talk a lot about some of speech, and of course, so far let's come to reality. Let's of course leave some of those matter when it comes to terrorists. Now, some of what the Nigerians are facing, talking about the masses, is presently is one of the things we call the economic hardship. It's affecting all the restriction, no matter how, of course, the particular place you find yourself is affecting in every economic hardship. Of course, this is what the masses, this is what Nigeria want to hear from the speech. Of course, what is the next step? Now, talking about the economic hardship, Tinubu says that he is working so hard that very, very soon the price and hike of food commodities, and of course most especially when it comes to the petroleum, the fuel subsidy, of course, and issue going around, that soon enough we'll be able to enjoy most of this. Do you see this coming? Of course, this is a better form of the economic action. Of course, most of it is especially talking about the fuel scarcity, of course the hike in food prices, some of these. What do you want to say about that?
The economic crisis cannot be detached from the sophistication of an economic think tank, and you cannot divorce it from the economic team. The president, while campaigning, told us Cardozo and Wale Edun had the magic wand, but in the last few weeks we have seen Wale Edun and Cardozo telling us they don't have silver bullets, that they did not promise us magic wands. You cannot divorce the rule of law. You can divorce infrastructure. You can divorce power from a stable economy. You cannot divorce security. The level of insecurity in this country is so much. And when you see the rich, it's difficult to catch a Yaya Bello who has misappropriated an 80 billion and that 84 billion.
Right.
But some weeks ago, we jailed a man for 6 months for stealing 32 pounds of yam. A hungry man.
A hungry man.
The law appears to be too strong for the weak and too weak for the strong. So there are some basics. Illegal mining goes on daily in this country, not.
Yeah.
And this an avenue for us to earn foreign reserve, foreign currency. So when you look at and our life revolves around fuel, from how we move, from our transport fees, from the cost of our foodstuffs, from the cost of our house rents, our generator, our gens that we on at night, even the ease with which journalists and analysts come to live programs. It revolves around fuel. Fuel is like what the Germans call real politic. It's like that real factor that affects our real life situations beyond religion, family, support groups, the weather. I mean, there was a flood in Maiduguri. Now compare that flood with the flood in Asheville in North Carolina. You can see the efforts by the government in North Carolina to provide power, to provide fuel, and to still make sure that the welfare packages of the workers is not affected. But we saw the vice president, who was governor in Borno for 8 years, now going to visit his shehu and entering the flood when monies were appropriated for that dam. Now let us be clear, the difference between the flood in Maiduguri and that in Poland, in Sweden, in Nepal or Asheville was that the ones over there were natural. We can't blame God for opening the heavens, but we must blame man. We must punish man for misappropriating millions meant for a dam that got ruptured, only for the vice president to go and be talking about Palestine in the UN floor, when his own Maiduguri is ravaged by flood, by hunger, by insecurity, by out of school children, by VVF and whatnot, and same for every of the 36 states, which is an effect of the hunger, the poverty, the injustice going on. I trust my brother, with power and good road and security, even with good stadiums or stadia in 36 states, this government can even go to Dubai with all the yacht. The people will not care. I can tell you that most Nigerians don't even care about the yacht or an oil well. As I speak to you, the person has left for UK. And the real life situations of the people is not improving. So the earlier they go to the experts, Okonjo is still alive, Iweala is still alive, even Indika Kalu came back from retirement the other day. It appears there is there's a section of this country that have an idea of how to make the economy relatively stable. Sanusi is still alive. The other day he was with the former president Goodluck, and they were talking about the CBN, and some monies. I mean, James 1:5 was clear. If you lack knowledge, ask from the Lord, who is generous, and he shall give you wisdom. There's no law that says that the president must be the wisest man in the land. That's why you have advisors. But according to Niccolo Machiavelli, one of the finest theorists on political history and economics, he said the prince, in this case the president, must be wise on basic issues of geography, history, economics, defense, so that he will be able to detect the good advice among his advisors. And time is of the essence, because this government, it's easier for a northerner to win a second term than a southerner, even when we had the military and even in this civilian regime. Goodluck lost the second term, and with these meetings by El-Rufai, Gusso, Obasanjo, who is from Ogun State here, and with the obedient movements moving, this presidency should realize that it only had 8.2 million votes from a possible 150 million votes, official 92 million eligible voters. It's standing on a weak mandate, but it's acting like they have been elected for life.
All right. If you want to talk more, I know you can take a lot of time to talk about that. But before we, of course, wrap things up, let's talk about some of the expression of the masses. Before this particular day, talking about the 1st of October, there is always, of course, a speculation about protests in different states. We saw the protests in Abuja and some other states. But when it comes to, in Abeokuta, there was no single protest. I actually went to some of the venue where the protests should stand, talking about the Moshida Abiola. Of course, no, those security agents were there. We saw the police, we saw the army. But definitely, I met with one protester, definitely, that I saw during the hardship protesting. I saw him and I said he actually went to check out if there's going to be protest. And of course, with some of discussion I had with him, he said others too, they are ready to go for protest, but it seems that people are not ready to come out. I'm talking about in Ogun State, they're ready to come out for the protest. Now, a question just to, of course, wrap things up. Do you feel that where people were much expecting people to come out for the protest more, of course, to show their own opinion when it comes to Nigeria? And do you feel that people are more a little bit hopeful, or will I say they're still actually optimism that okay, things will come out great from this particular country? Because we could see that people are not out for the protest. People are actually sitting and watching. Okay, let us see what. So, do you believe that the Nigerians actually still waiting, or they're still optimistic that okay, things are going to get better?
Maya Angelou was one of the finest black rights activists in America. She was a teacher, a professor, and a scholar. And one of her favorite books is Why a Caged Bird Sings. Last year or 2 years ago, a woman gave birth and she felt the best thing to do was to throw the baby into a pit toilet. That baby was surrounded by feces and shits. The baby had two choices: keep quiet and sink and die. But the baby kept crying. It kept crying. It kept crying. And passers-by had the baby and dug that baby out and saved that baby's life. So, do you know those who shot Nigerian or Nam youths at Lekki? Have they been caught? Has the opposite report been implemented? Has the NDDC report been implemented? Has the Oresa report been implemented? Rahim Adedoyin, who almost became the owner of Ife. What is the latest on that case? Modupe Onitiri MK Abiola, who almost took over the state house in Ibadan. Where is she? How come I don't wish the government good luck in arresting unarmed protesters? I think they should also tell us who were those who murdered our compatriots in Lekki, in Owo, in Benue, in Plateau. Who are the cabal who is making these our refineries not work? Who are the cabal who are making all our discos give us extraneous diabolical estimated bills? I think that these are more of the real issues. The Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway, what last did you hear? The Sokoto Badagry Highway, what last did you hear? ASU is crying. But within this period, we have heard of our young undergraduates who have died. Either they were used for ritual or who died because they went to act like acting girlfriends. These are the real issues. A man, according to Huxley, who achieved a paraphrase in the last chapter of his book, There Was a Country. He said a man might be helpless to fight injustice, but a man must never be helpless to protest. Even God gave us the power to protest through free will. And from heaven you could see Lucifer protesting, and on earth you could see Peter challenging Christ. And sometimes, even though Christ called him Satan, after some time Christ gave him the key and gave him his blessings. So protests are like a voice. The moment we are born, the first instrument we have is our voice. We are crying. It is the duty of great democracies to listen to all cries, and that's why they have the police, the army, INEC. They have the paraphernalia. The Nigerian president is one of the strongest men on earth, after the Pope and the American president, and maybe the UN Secretary General. And we have the resources. So there's nothing wrong with Nigerians or with Nigerians that can be fixed with what can be right with Nigerians and with a democratically elected presidency. But when you award a Senate president, a GCON, as part of your independence speech, you start wondering, well, what has he done? And don't forget that a Wabara was impeached. A Mantu, who was a former deputy Senate president, was impeached. Are those titles based on ascription or by patriotism? And for an Akpabio, who told us that while we are protesting, which that end bad governance 2 months ago, that he will be eating and drinking. And for a man who is a satana, you know, the perception, you know, by the Nigerians who are suffering, who are dying, who are burying their lost ones, who disappear in between the Mediterranean Sea while on long journeys, whose pensions don't get paid, whose salaries are owed, who are kidnapped. I mean, I didn't even go into the journalist who was, as I speak, at least 100 journalists under this APC government have been arrested illegally and detained. Last week it was one just somewhere in Abeokuta here, picked up close to the NUJ secretariat, close to a police area 2 command. I mean, this is a president who was also a protester under the hard days of Abacha, under the greatest and finest period of Gani Fayemi, Beko, Braithwaite, Odumaki, MCK Ajurutuku, Nigerian students, NANS, NBA, all voices of the people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. There's room for improvements in this government, in the operation, and by Nigerians who appear to have been docile. But I like to spend more time on trying to make sure that the mother hen understands her role as a mother with full maternal instinct, than for us to think that the chicks should know their left and right. In this case, the chick is a figurative example of the masses. So over 170 million of us who are poor, who are hungry, who are confused, and who are dying.
Okay, a lot.
Let us thank God for those of us who are still alive, who are still trying to be law-abiding. But we can't say this for many of us who lack patience, and that's why we have the police and the prisons, because not everybody can endure hunger and lack for so long.
All right, thank you so much, Nicholas. Of course, you have actually, expand, or what I call it, substantiate yourself more on this particular Nigeria at 64 Independent Day so far. Right, of course, thank you so much, Nicholas. Of course, we're glad to have you more on this program talking about journalists explain this. Of course, I enjoyed so far. I enjoyed everything.
It is national duty. It's a privilege, and I thank the listeners. God bless Nigeria. Hope should never die.
Definitely, hope should.
And it is an act of it is revolutionary to speak the truth at times of national crisis.
Yeah, definitely. That is why we have the voice, of course, to say to say our opinion. Of course, to give what we wanted to the government. Of course, thank you so much for joining us on this program. Journalists explain this. Don't forget, I will of course remain your host on this program, whereby we will talk more the next program on another topical issues, whereby we will establish more on the discourse. Of course, my name remains Stephen Aja. And don't forget, you can follow us on our social media, NSTV Lagos, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and other social media. And of course, you can also watch us live on Good TV. My name is Stephen Ajayi. Enjoy the rest of your day.